Hi, I'm Brett from Metropole. Do you understand the ripple effect and how it relates to property prices and price growth? It's a similar concept to dropping a stone in a pond, the result being smaller ripples moving further away. A lot of investors make the mistake of thinking the ripple effect will continue to go on forever, or believing that all cities are equal. But like the pond, there are certain boundaries or limitations that will stop or constrict the ripple of price growth. In a property sense, this boundary has a human element, which is critical for investors to understand the framework behind this principle. While outer areas may eventually see price gains, you may not have the time or patience to wait decades. The first thing to understand is what drives us as humans. What's the human element? I believe that there's three things that we need to look for as an investor, and it's following the trend. Imagine for a moment you're moving to a new capital city. The first thing you want to do is get a job. You want to get a job as close to work as possible, so that's going to be your priority. Generally, most people are going to live in the big employment hubs in the capital cities and the regional areas, so they're going to want to live quite close by within 20 or 30 minutes. That's going to drive the most demand. If you are moving to a capital city or somewhere else and you've got family in tow, quality education is also going to be a priority. So education, high schools, and it's quite often why we see really good school catchments outperform the market. And the third thing is walkability and convenience. Having the ability to walk down the park or have a place to relax, going to a coffee shop, and it's not good enough to have one or two coffee shops or one or two takeaway restaurants anymore. You need 3 or 4 coffee shops and a boutique cafe and a butcher and all those kinds of things. 4 or 5 different shopping centres close by within 15 or 20 minutes of where you are. So those are the 3 priorities: employment, the second thing is education, and the third thing is livability and walkability. Now we understand that, how do we measure it? Well, one of the great things we use to measure that, those 3 concepts, is a website called walkscore.com. It's a great tool that encompasses everything around the area: the employment hubs, the education facilities, the livability, the walkability, the public transport, the green space, the list goes on. And it rates the area with a score out of 100. Obviously, the more that's in the location and the livability and the walkability to that location, the higher the score. For example, almost all of our city CBDs are going to have the high score. In Brisbane, our CBD is up around the 95% mark, the 95% score. As we move further out, that score starts to drop away. We lose the ability to walk everywhere. We lose the closeness of good schools and good employment hubs and things. If we get out around the 10-kilometre mark, in Brisbane, it's around 57. And then as we get further and further away out towards the 20k mark, it's probably around 35 for some of those particular suburbs. So that's the case study we've done, and you can actually see how the further away you move, you lose those types of things that are in demand. And eventually there's going to be a tipping point. So what we see at the moment in Brisbane is we have now reached that tipping point because we're using the boundary, we're hitting that boundary between affordability and where affordability meets livability. People don't want to continue moving further and further out with walk scores approaching 0 and having no employment hubs and education facilities and lifestyle precincts. So rather than moving out, they're simply changing location. They're staying put or moving further in, but they're changing the accommodation they're looking to buy. They're now buying townhouses, they're now buying bigger, larger apartments, and they're becoming more in demand in those inner city locations with all those types of things I mentioned. So as an investor, it's critically important to understand this. Number one, don't keep moving out. It may or may not work, particularly if you're moving up from a different location or suburb. Just because a Melbourne or Sydney has the urban sprawl, it doesn't mean that Brisbane's going to have that. So move inward. Look out for good quality townhouses, apartments in small complexes. Encompass lifestyle precincts. Looks for really good school catchments, high walkability, public transport. They're going to be things of the future. You cannot keep buying further and further out and expecting prices to continually grow. And the last thing is do a bit of research into a 20-minute neighbourhood and what people want in those types of neighbourhoods. There's some great information going around about lifestyle and convenience, and I think that's going to be the big trend moving forward. Thanks for watching.